In our news tonight, His Majesty presents the Supreme Commander's flag to a mechanized army battalion. Syria says it will abide by the terms of a Russian plan for de-escalation zones as long as rebels also observe it. And world leaders congratulate French President Emmanuel Macron on his election win. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, led a ceremony where he presented the Supreme Commander's flag to Ja'far bin Abi Talib 39th Mechanized Battalion. The handing over of the banner is a show of appreciation for the bravery and sacrifices of members of the units in defending the country. Arriving for the ceremony, King Abdullah was greeted by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and a 21-gun salute. An exhibition was also organized as part of the ceremony in which machinery and weapons used by the battalion were on display. A number of royal family members, the Prime Minister, the Senate President, the Speaker of the lower house of Parliament, as well as top civic and military officials were also in attendance. Minister of Foreign and Expatriates Affairs Ayman al-Safadi met with a delegation of the Czech Republic Senate headed by Vice President Ivo Baric. Safadi said that new tangible steps needed to be taken to further cement economic, trade, investment and tourism relations between Jordan and the Czech Republic. The minister also spoke about regional developments, including the Palestinian issue, Syria and the war on terrorism. Safadi stressed the two-state solution as the basis for resolving the Palestinian issue that will lead to the creation of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. He also said there is no military solution in Syria and that collective efforts are needed to find a political solution to stop the bloodshed in the country. Senator Baric praised Jordan's efforts to help stabilize the region. Deputizing for Prime Minister Hani al-Mulki, Interior Minister Ghalib al-Za'bi opened a conference on local economic development. The conference, entitled Boosting Fair Economic Development and Expanding and Diversifying the Job Opportunities Base, will discuss over 2 days working papers by local and international experts and specialists. The conference, organized by the Interior Ministry with support from the European Union, will mainly discuss comprehensive development and the role of various institutions to address economic recession. It will examine efforts by various government and national institutions, civil society organizations, private entities, and international aid agencies to enhance economic development in local communities. It also seeks to raise the income of individuals and ensure a fair distribution of income in society to achieve social justice and peace.
And in line with the spirit of our cooperation, the EU provides assistance to Jordan in its endeavors to consolidate political reforms, secure the rule of law through continued progress towards justice reform, promote the respect of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and support sustainable and local development, creating jobs for women and youth in particular. Jordan is responding to the Syria crisis. It faces huge challenges in hosting Syrian refugees seeking protection, and the EU is supporting Jordan in addressing these challenges, in particular in supporting its resilience and creating improved development perspectives. And we believe that economic development is at the core of maintaining resilience.
The United Nations in Jordan, all agencies, and maybe a couple of them in particular, UNDP, ILO, and some others, are committed to support Jordan to find lasting and sustainable solutions to its development challenges. While Jordan, no doubt, has been very successful in achieving important development gains, today the challenge, as it is for so many other countries, to ensure sustainability, especially considering the heavy burdens which the humanitarian conflicts in the region have inflicted on the kingdom.
The Lower House's Administrative Committee has demanded that the government clarify a recent amendment to the Civil Service Law under which the basic salaries of high-ranking officials will be raised by 225 dinars. Head of the panel, MP Marzouk Dasha, said the decision comes at a time of rising prices, poverty and unemployment. Minister of Communications and Information Technology and Public Sector Development, Majdi Shweke, said the salary hike is part of reforms to address deficiencies in the salaries of top public sector employees. The Jordanian Navy ran simulated exercises with navies from the U.S. and other friendly nations on the second day of Eager Lion military drill taking place in Jordan. Today's event featured shipboarding and searching and battling pirates. The 11-day war games, which kicked off yesterday, are aimed at boosting the capacity for planning and implementing international joint operations by different military forces. It also seeks to raise capabilities in fighting terrorism, border security, evacuations and humanitarian operations, crisis management, strategic communications, search and rescue operations, protection of vital installations, and combating cyber terrorism. Syria's Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim said his government would abide by the terms of a Russian plan for de-escalation zones so long as rebels also observed it. Al-Muallim told a televised news conference that rebels involved in the process must help clear areas they control of jihadist factions, and that the deal's guarantors must help them do this.
According to the memorandum, we will commit, but if a violation takes place by any group, the response will be crucial, and we hope that this memorandum will reach the separation between opposition groups that signed the ceasefire agreement on the 30th of December 2016 and between Nusra Front and its allied organizations and Daesh.
U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, meanwhile, said the United States would closely examine proposed de-escalation zones aimed at easing Syria's civil war. But he warned the devil is in the details and that much needed to be worked out. Mattis added that basic details are still unclear, including who specifically would ensure the zones are safe and exactly which groups will be kept out of them. Despite the Syrian ceasefire, Russian warplanes fired heavy shock missiles targeting Latamne in rural Hama. Footage uploaded to a social media website showed two separate airstrikes in the village. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said a shepherd was killed by Syrian army artillery shelling targeting areas surrounding Latamne. He was the second person killed since the ceasefire in the de-escalation zones came into effect on Friday. Under an agreement that took effect at midnight on Friday, fighting was intended to subside over 6 months in 4 de-escalation zones where violence between the army and rebels has been most intense. Iraqi forces faced stiff resistance from Daesh in northwest Mosul after opening a new front against the terrorists in a push to rout them from the city after 7 months of fighting. Explosions and gunfire could be heard, as well as a wail of sirens as ambulances rushed into town while fighting raged on. Thousands of civilians remained trapped in harsh conditions under Daesh, and many innocent victims have been injured as they get caught in the crossfire. Iraqi forces and the US-led coalition have been pushing hard to destroy Daesh, fighting back against car bombings and snipers hidden among narrow streets. Though the task is proving harder than expected, Iraqi commanders insist that the battle, at least in the city, will soon be over. The head of Daesh in Afghanistan, Abdel Hasib, was confirmed dead. A spokesman for the Afghan Defense Ministry said he was killed in a joint Afghan-U.S. Special Forces operation on April 27th in the eastern province of Nangarhar. Hasib is believed to have ordered a series of high-profile attacks, including one in March on the main military hospital in Kabul. France woke up to a new political reality after Emmanuel Macron was elected president with a business-friendly vision of European integration. With virtually all votes counted, Macron had topped 66% against just under 34% for far-right nationalist Marine Le Pen. Macron's first official engagement as president-elect will be when he attends a ceremony marking the Western Allies' World War II victory in Europe. Congratulations poured in from around the world as leaders expressed their eagerness to work with a new French leader. So far, Macron's win has had a positive effect as the euro hit a 6-month high against the dollar after the currency rose to 1.1024 US dollars in early Asia trading.
Ich habe mich über den großartigen Wahlerfolg von
I was delighted about the fantastic electoral success of Emmanuel Macron, and I congratulated him personally yesterday by telephone. He carries the hopes of millions of French people and of many people in Germany and the whole of Europe. He conducted a brave pro-European campaign. He stands for openness to the world. He stands firmly behind a social market economy, and we know that Germany and France are bound by fate.
South Korean presidential candidates wrapped up their election campaign ahead of a snap presidential election. Tomorrow's election was set after the impeachment of former President Park Geun-hye over corruption charges. The latest polls showed Moon Jae-in, the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party of Korea, as the favorite to win with around 40% support. He would become the first liberal president in South Korea in 9 years. His nearest challengers, An Soo of the centrist People's Party and ultra-conservative Liberty Party of Korea, Ong Jun, stand tied at approximately 18%. Many South Koreans want politicians to put Korea first, a move that could drive a near-record number of people to the polls. There is no end in sight to the misery of migrants trying to make it to Europe across the Mediterranean. More than 200 migrants are feared dead as their rubber boats began to deflate before rescuers showed up in the Mediterranean over the weekend. Two groups of survivors said in their testimonies to authorities in Libya and Italy that several bodies, including an infant, were also washed up on a Libyan beach. According to the Italian and Libyan coast guards, about 7,500 people have been rescued in the waters off the coast of Libya. A spokesperson for the United Nations Refugees Agency, UNHCR, said an increased number of Syrian families could now be seen using the route across the sea to Italy. This, they said, was possibly a result of the ongoing fighting in Syria and the fact that Libya is becoming unstable for families that had taken refuge there. The U.S. military's experimental X-37B spaceplane landed yesterday at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The Air Force said it had just completed a 2-year classified mission. The unmanned X-37B, which resembles a miniature space shuttle, is a Boeing-built spaceplane. It is one of 2 in the Air Force fleet that conducted unspecified experiments for more than 700 days while in orbit. It is also the 4th and lengthiest mission so far for the secretive program managed by the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Office. Spring flooding continued in Canada after torrential rain spread to various parts of the country, including British Columbia and Ontario. The country's worst flooding in decades hit Montreal, with the city declaring a state of emergency as of this afternoon. The Canadian military will deploy about 1,200 troops to help deal with the flooding. Some residents whose property was destroyed said the relief effort was too little, too late. The mayor of one city in Quebec said police would be called in to forcefully remove people who did not follow evacuation orders from firefighters. Unusual weather also affected Russia. Cold temperatures and snow, however, did not dampen Russian spirits ahead of the victory parade on Moscow's Red Square tomorrow, which marks the anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Temperatures dropped to 4 degrees Celsius as snow fell, with a further drop to below 0 Celsius expected tomorrow. However, a scheduled air show as part of a parade will go on as planned. According to a Moscow resident, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. Tomorrow is expected to be the coldest May for Russians in the 21st century. Rafa Nadal, winner of both the Monte Carlo Masters and the Barcelona Open in April, will have to delay his opening match at the Madrid Open to Wednesday due to an ear infection. Nadal is fourth seed for the tournament behind Andy Murray, Novak Djokovic and Stan Wawrinka, but he has had an incredibly successful 2017 so far. Apart from his 3 titles in Monaco, Barcelona and Brisbane, Nadal reached the finals at Miami, Indian Wells and the Australian Open, losing to Roger Federer in all 3 and Acapulco, where he lost to big serving Sam Querrey. Nadal will play Italian Fabio Fognini on Wednesday.
Faltaba ganar un título después de jugar unas cuantas finales y se ha conseguido, o sea que muy contento por ello y bueno, estamos aquí en otro evento. Lo pasado está, muy feliz de haberlo conseguido,
The sport has been dubbed the Formula One of the air, and these drone racing championships have returned to the United Kingdom. Teams of 4 pilots had to fly drones around a marked looping race course that included some tight hairpin curves while wearing goggles that show them a live feed from the drone's camera. It's like a real-life video game. The sport appeals to aspiring pilots and computer gamers who enjoy all the adrenaline of flight and a sense of escapism. 60 pilots took part in the race, made up of 15 teams. Team Noob FTW, captained by Gary Evans, took top honors with a score of 40 from their 5 rounds.
3, 2, 1, and go!
And finally, the weather outlook. It will be pleasant tonight and hot tomorrow with a high of 34 degrees in Amman, as temperatures will be 6 to 7 degrees above seasonal average at this time of year. The Gulf of Aqaba will also have a hot day tomorrow with light winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. A reminder of our top stories before we end the news. His Majesty presents the Supreme Commander's flag to a mechanized Air Army battalion. Syria says it will abide by the terms of a Russian plan for de-escalation zones as long as rebels also observe it. And world leaders congratulate French President Emmanuel Macron on his election win. With this, we reach the end of tonight's news. I'm Dana Abusham. Thanks for watching and have a good night.